Good afternoon. This is Jim Ray with the Road to the Autry Masters. We're talking with artists of the Masters of the American West at the Autry Museum. This afternoon, we're very pleased to have with us Tony Abeyta. Tony is a Navajo artist based out of Santa Fe for the most part, although we're speaking to him from his home in Oakland, California. It's a little chilly up there. He's got the fireplace going. Welcome, Tony. Glad you could join us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. It's good to be here. California says hello. It's freezing in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but I'm just going to be heading back there pretty soon to get more paintings done, get some work started and finished for the Masters of the American West at the Autry.
Oh, we look forward to that. So, Tony, I like to start these things off by asking artists to tell us about their artistic upbringing. And why don't you share with us how you grew into being the artist that you are?
I've been painting for most of my life, although that's not exactly what I was set out to do. My father was a painter, but he struggled, and we were always struggled economically to make ends meet. And so I always assumed that you could never really make a living at doing art. And then at some point, I had a series of jobs, and I was like, I don't know if I can go through the rest of my life showing up to work on time and being an employee of the month. I never was.
Not the Tony I know.
Yeah, I know, right? Not the employee of the month. But then what ended up happening was I got an opportunity to go study at the Institute of American Indian Arts. I picked up a paintbrush, and things were never the same. I had found like my medium. I wanted to be a painter. I would stay up late painting where I could barely even like drive myself home. And I would just, start painting at, say, eat dinner, 5 o'clock, and then I would stay painting until 11, 12, 1 in the morning, just nonstop, all of the time. And so I knew that there was something passionate there that I really loved doing.
Yeah.
And I experimented. I worked in oils. I worked in acrylic. I did watercolors. I did drawings, all of the things that an art student would do. And so this was my beginning. I mean, as a kid, I drew, drawings and stuff, and I was an average art student in high school. I had a very good art instructor who, taught me to experiment, to do different things. And so most of my family members are artists. And so it just happened, that trajectory of being a little sunburnt kid in Gallup, New Mexico. I was raised right along the railroad tracks there on Route 66, as if you ever driven through there. And art has taken me on a journey all over the world, really. And I love doing it. And I'm constantly, working on new works. Like when do I get to start new paintings is my biggest question, because I'm finishing up old paintings for shows and commissions and these kinds of things. So right now I'm getting ready for the Masters show, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, it's just been a really wonderful journey all along.
So you can see a couple of Tony's examples of Tony's work on the easel back over his left shoulder, and then the one up above the fireplace over on the other side, and two distinctly different styles. How did you come about the styles of work that you operate in? And this is not the limit of what Tony Abeyta does. I mean, his work is all over the place. How did you come across these to develop these very distinctive styles?
Yeah, so diversity. I've had a lot of diversity in my work. I've experimented a lot with, mediums, and within each, each way of creating something on paper or canvas, or building and constructing. And I also do jewelry. So it called to a different muse. Like I really recognized that when it came to jewelry, I was more malleable and pounded and ground. I would grind and do lapidary work, and that was a different part of my brain that was activated than was when I was drawing, was much more delicate, and it was like an experience. It was like being quiet and working, very really up close. And then some of the paintings I'm painting with two brushes, and just working away, trying to capture the spirit, and in this case, landscapes, that spirit of being in the land and watching sky and the clouds move, and then looking at the vegetation. And so I spend a lot of time just looking, looking, looking. And that's actually how I was taught to draw before beginning a drawing, was to just sit and look and then begin your drawing. And so you actually understood the space, the light, the composition that you would choose. And that sort of merged into the paintings and how I do. So I do everything from memory. Like I will shoot a couple of photographs of something, like really specifically, if you're going to paint the Grand Canyon and the monuments, you want them to be correct. Or Yosemite, you really have to be very correct. So I will reference my phone while I'm working and painting. So that's how a lot of the paintings, manifest. But I'm more interested in how does it feel? What was my emotional response to it?
Mm-hmm.
So with the abstract works, it's much more internal, much more emotional. I'm engaged in, like, how does this shape and form feel to me? And is it literal, or is it very symbolic? And is it archaic and ancestral, or is it very much mechanical and technological? So I look at all of these adjectives to describe what is it that I'm actually just feeling.
Yeah.
And what my emotional experience with all of my art has and continues to be is um, a dialogue between me and the muse, the inspirational force that is helping me to create what I do. I'm a conduit. I channel something that I see, a beautiful experience, a feeling, an emotional place in nature, and then I want to go back and paint it. And that's how this all comes to be.
So we're going to get into that a little bit more a little later in the talk. Um, so you're nationally acclaimed. You've been in the Autry show for years. You've been in the NMAI. You've been honored at the National Museum of the American Indian. You're chopping in pretty tall cotton, as they used to say. What was the process like for you to kind of gain that type of stature in the artistic community?
I think just getting old. Like, I've been doing this since I was really young, and I've always worked really hard to create the best possible work that I can. And often that's met with a little bit of adversity, because in the world of creating and selling paintings and doing shows and stuff, sometimes like that, it just has to be right. It has to be authentically pertinent in the way I create and make things. So sometimes it's not there. And I go in the studio and I'm like, I just can't paint. And then some days I go in there and I can paint 7 paintings, but I can't predict that. I don't really, I'm not always in control of that. So as this career has gone on, I've had to figure out a way to do my art and to take advantage of the times that I am very much inspired and that I am in the studio, and push myself a little further. And when I'm in there and I'm working on 5 or 6 different paintings, I say, you're going to stay 2 more hours because everything's flowing just right. And that's great. Now, the opportunities that have happened in my lifetime, I'm so grateful for. A lot of it is really good people who have been there to support me, who have, been instrumental in giving me a chance, giving me opportunities and invitationals to exhibitions and shows, to be able to show with the masters of the West and fellow artists that are part of my, that are my contemporaries. And there's the superstars of the painting world. and sculptures too. And so it's always like, did I do this by myself or did somebody help me? I'd say people helped me a lot. I didn't do this by myself. So me saying I worked really hard to get where I'm at, that's part of it. But it's also having really good, positive, inspirational, and supportive people who have given me opportunities to say, we would like to have a painting of yours in our museum, in our institution. We'll buy a painting to put in the museum. I'm like, yes, this is like
Yeah.
what I do and why I do. And then people get to see the work, and little by little, if the work's good, then it promotes it. It has a life of its own, and it finds where it's supposed to go.
And I have seen your works in many museums as we have traveled around the country. I'm sure that's probably the case around the world. But so let's talk a little bit about what you're working on for the Masters. I don't know if I'm going to have images to lay in, but I know that we've got several images of works that you've submitted in Masters past, and I'll probably lay those in on top of the video so people can get an example of the types of things that you're doing in. But tell us a little bit about what you're working on for this year's Masters.
I'm working on 3 paintings for this year's exhibit, and one's a small miniature one, but the other 2 paintings are in the works. I could talk about them, but I'm a man of mystery. I always get things a little bit, at the last minute, and some like one of those things. It's like waiting for that news to happen, and everyone's like, "Don't you have this months in advance completed?"
Yeah.
That's the other guys. Those guys are really good at that. This guy is maybe a little remiss in having everything finished. But I've been doing this so many years that it always comes together, and I do the best job that I can. Right now, I have been working on a group of paintings, which is really trying to get to not just the way landscapes make me feel and that experience of them, but what's innately in the soul of nature. So really looking at like what is it that is the force of the earth and of water, and also how is our planet changing in ways where much more fertile places are finding a more parched landscape, and there's lack of rains, and there is rising temperatures. So everything is changing in the world that we're living in, and I'm trying to capture some of that change in my paintings in the here and the now. So other than just making a beautiful landscape and making that part of what I've become known for, I'm really trying to capture something that's transitional, and that's what I'm getting in some of the work that I'm doing. It's challenging because it's hard to paint something that you're feeling and then get it down just as the way you feel it. The mystery of not knowing what's going on tomorrow, having not trying to look into a crystal ball, that global climate change is creating a place where all living creatures will meet their demise. I don't think that's it at all, but I do see and feel and recognize that there, and it is a change that's happening all around us. And I think we all know it. I think we can sense something is, some days it's just too hot to go outside in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's just too dry to go to the river and swim and fish.
Right.
And that's changed in my lifetime. I've known seasons when winter was winter, and Christmas is always had snow, right? Since I was a kid. I remember that. And now,
not so much.
Yeah, Southwest is like California. It's like Los Angeles or something. Cold though, but no snow.
Yeah, no snow in Santa Fe. Pretty rare these days.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, wherever it might be. I think that we'll have snow this Christmas.
Yeah,
but
I think these environmental issues.
That
I think these environmental issues are things that a number of artists are beginning to pick up on, particularly the ones that are working in the area of landscapes. I was having a similar conversation with Eric Merrill, where he was talking about the desertification and the lack of water which in the Southwest is becoming a very, very, very big pressing problem. We can't get by without water, and where are we going to find it? So good
Yeah.
for you for looking into that. You've talked a little bit, but I want to go back and touch on it again. When you are considering a subject, I mean, you talked about your muse. When you're considering a subject, how's that process work? How's the inspiration come to you that this is what I'm going to put on this piece of canvas?
Yeah, it's always the best question to ask an artist. It's part of an everyday experience. Like I'm living my life, I'm enjoying things, and then I get to get outside. I get to, feel the temperatures. Like the summer was really amazing. It was really a great summer. We got some great rains, and that's always just inspires me, especially with the skies. So like the painting behind me is a painting that comes right out of the summer, and then it attaches itself to the fall. So you get these chamisa that are blooming, and then you get the rivers, and so I get to spend some time outside and enjoy being in nature. That's lately has been a large part of my inspirational muse. So I think that has a lot to do, but there's also this, element of being in the studio and saying that every one of these paintings is part of, a dialogue. It is about this global climate change stuff, but it is also like in myself and my own career. Like, are these paintings reflective of emotional like feelings that I have? So some of them are very dark and foreboding, and sometimes they're frenetic and busy, and then sometimes they're very tranquil. And so looking over the work over a long period of time, I start seeing moments where I see myself when I was most happy and content, and I can see when I've got anxiety and I'm frustrated. The paintings are testaments to how my life is reflected in the artwork. And so people will look at it and say, a lot of your paintings are really busy, Tony. They got so much stuff going on. They're maximalist. There's just so many things. And I'm like, yeah, I've been traveling. I've got like
so that was me that day.
Yeah. And my girlfriend told me this morning, like said, you have a really hard time saying no. And I said, I know. I want to say yes to everything. Like I'm this Kerouac man that's, experiential. I want this journey. And then I say yes to everything. And then people are like, where's my painting? And they say, when's it going to be done?
Yeah.
And all of the pressures are part of all of it. Every artist out there knows, as you're getting ready for any exhibit, that there's external things, pressures from the external stuff, which help you to get the painting finished, because if they didn't knock on your door, you wouldn't do it. And B, there's like this other part that, you just want to like make the best possible work you can. So you want to tell people, wait, can you just have patience, and maybe right now isn't the best time. That is also the things that I'm working with is the external world, the internal world. This is what I'm feeling. This is my experience, documented in the paintings, and it is either a lot of fun or a lot of stress. Yeah. But I chose the life. I love it. I do love it.
I think I'm going to contrast this landscape that you've got in the background with, I believe, the painting you had last year. It was a large landscape which was filled with fire. So you've got a very, very cool landscape right here and a very hot landscape that you presented to us last year. It was either last year or the year before last. I'll see if I can dig that up and put it in the background as we're talking. But I very much can relate to, one, you're sensing what's going on with the landscape, and two, what's going on inside of you being reflected into the way that you see that landscape. That's a very interesting dynamic, but I can understand it. I have, you probably don't recall this, but several years ago, Jody and I were at studio visit in your studio up in Santa Fe, and there were several other people there, and you were doing what a lot of artists can't do, which is talk and paint at the same time. And in fact, you were walking around with your palette amongst 5 or 6 different paintings, and you would do a little bit on this one, and then you would do a little bit on that one, and you get a color that you like, and you just kind of work that around the paintings that you were working on, all the while carrying on a conversation with people that were standing around watching you. It was quite an amazing feat.
Yeah. Well, I'm somewhat of an extrovert, right? So I always have people coming by the studio, and again, I say, yes, come on by, come and see what I'm up to. But sometimes I'm really working, and people say, can I drop by to say hello? And I'm like, I'm going to keep working, and you could talk to me, but I'm not going to sit down, because then I get fidgety. Yeah. And so I'm much more happier when I'm just painting, and I can have a conversation. I could be painting right now, and it wouldn't phase me, because a lot of it, sometimes the less I'm like cerebrally thinking about it and just doing it, I think it feels more authentic. And often sometimes when I start doubting myself, say, I wonder if this was a mistake. Maybe this is too bright. So when I'm doing that I'm never happy with the results. Sometimes it's just, and that's why music is a really good part of what I do. Is I'll put on music and listen to things. I'm a record collector, and so I have a lot of different tunes on, and sometimes news, believe it or not. I listen to radio, listen to talk shows and podcasts. And that keeps my brain from listening to its own self.
Right.
I don't know. We all work differently.
Yeah.
You know, some people need silence. Some people need solitude.
Well, you know,
I don't mind people coming by and
the last thing I like to get into in these discussions is that of process. And so why don't you share with us a little bit about how your process might have evolved over the course of your career, and how you possibly see it evolving in the future?
Yeah, this is a good question. The secret recipes to like how does it all work? The process is, again, is part of it is clearing my mind to let something happen that is just coming from the inspiration, right? That's the foundation. It's like, what am I inspired to do today? And so sometimes it's really simple. It's like, is this a vertical painting or is it horizontal? So I will pick and choose that as like my first thing. And then I look at the surface. I'm really looking for, like, how do I create the surface that I'm going to work on? So it should be kind of sacred. So I prepare a beautiful surface that to me is the beginning of it. It's like massaging. Chefs, they take food and they massage, the meat to make it tender. Like, I go over to the canvas and I put like that love ground on it. And I just keep doing that all throughout it. And then come in there. And sometimes when it's wet, come in and start working. And then I'll draw in quickly the idea, the feeling, the emotion. What am I doing today? And I'm like, I'm going to do a volcano. And then the doubt comes in, like, a volcano? Are you really going to do a volcano exploding? Yeah, I think that's a landscape. It's not a landscape. Have you ever seen a volcano explode? It's reckoning with everything going on in my head, and then doing it and painting it, right? So then I just start it, and it's explosive, and it's happening. I'm splattering and moving, and everything's happening. And then I step back, pull up another painting, and then I'll start something else. But this one is different. It's more tranquil. It's a nocturne. It's, quieter, and it has more blues, and it has, much more poetics in it. Then it's different. So I just change the channel like that in my brain. And for those of you out there thinking he sounds like he's ADHD, kind of so.
But it works for you.
Making fun of me, but you ain't supposed to make fun of people like that.
But it works for you.
Then I'm just in there working and making the art, and some days feel more radical, some days feel much more sedated, and also it just happens out of the experience of getting in there. I mean, nothing gets done unless I am in the studio and have a brush in my hand, and then having you know, the idea that I'm going to do something that challenges me. I love the familiar of how I work. Some things I'm just gotten pretty good at doing, but the challenging things that I have to do are pushing me to think in new directions. And that's why you'll see more diversity in my work. I am a landscape painter. I do paint abstractly. I do large scale black and white drawings, which are very much in their own way like cuneiform. It's like some language that you have to decipher through time and experience. But the jewelry is part of that too. I love doing that because I love building and making stuff. I would have loved to have been an architect too, but you can only squeeze so much out of, you know, the paint tube of creativity, and then you run out and of time. Like you can't be good at a lot of things. You try to be great at one thing.
Right.
So that my process is much different than other people. I don't really work so much from photographs. I work through my own personal experience, my journey as an artist. I look at everything. I devour everything. It's all beautiful. It's all wonderful. I live in 2 different places at the same time. I travel all the time. I have a diversity of very interesting, really creative, artistic friends. I have a lot of conversations and dialogues with them about art, about music, about politics, about the changing planet, about food. And I love it all. I love all of this. And I look forward to this year, as I always do, to see what the other artists bring their prowess and their hot shots. You know, all of those guys, you know, they're all really, really good at what they do. And I look at them and I'm just like, I realize that we're not all the same. Each one of us has our own unilateral way of creating art, our own voices. And that's what makes this show so wonderful, is that there's a diaspora of all these amazing people doing really incredible things.
Yep.
You know, it's like my friend Logan, he has his paintings in maybe this year, and solitude, you know, he's working on a lot of stuff, but he doesn't have all the people coming around, and he focuses on his art. And me, I've got distractions. I'm like on the phone, got somebody there talking to me, and we're just, you know, we're all different animals.
That's right. Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking some time. And I know you're a very busy guy, so I really appreciate your taking the time to sit down and chat with us. We hope that we see you in Los Angeles in February, and very much looking forward to what you're going to create for us.
Thanks, Jim. I'll be there, and I'll have the paintings, and I'm honored to be part of the Masters.
We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
Sure.